Hello, my name is Matthew Bloxham. I'm the head of telecom, media and technology research at Bloomberg Intelligence for the EMEA region. And over the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to give you some thoughts about the outlook for the global telecom sector. Now, before we get going, just a quick introduction to Bloomberg Intelligence, or BI for short. We are the research arm of Bloomberg, and we provide data analysis and insights to our terminal clients to help them with their investment decision-making process across equities, credit, currencies, and macro strategy. Now, the event today takes place in the afterglow of Mobile World Congress Barcelona that took place in late June, a bit later than its usual February to March slot, and with quite a fewer people than usual. About 20,000 people attended in person compared to the usual 100,000 or so that make the trip to Barcelona. But the event was as full as ever of content, and it's quite hard to distill that into a single slide. But there was a lot of industry backpacking about the ability to keep networks running through the pandemic, despite a huge surge in capacity and data running through those networks. There was a lot of discussion about the acceleration of digitalization and how that's affecting the industry. There was even some commentary about space technology with an interesting keynote from Elon Musk about Starlink. And there was a lot of content about the mobile industry's contribution to sustainable development goals and climate goals. There was even some discussion around 6G, the future of the industry. Yes, that's right. Even though 5G is only just about getting going, the industry is talking about 6G. Now, despite all of that kind of positive rhetoric, the industry isn't doing so well on the stock market. If we look at industry performance since before the pandemic, so late 2019, telecom services stocks are roughly flat, whereas the wider industry is up about 30%. Similarly, forward estimates for profit from the industry are pretty much flat too, whereas they're up about 14 or 15%. For the MSCI World Index constituents. And why is that the case? And I think really it's quite simple. Despite all of this investment going in by carriers, most shareholders think that more of the value is going to accrue to the services that run over that technology, or indeed to the companies that are providing the hardware and software that go into making the infrastructure that carriers are deploying. But it's not all doom and gloom. For about 3 years now, we've been running an annual survey at BI looking at investor attitudes around 5G. In our latest poll that we ran in March, we found that about 70% of respondents see 5G as an important part of their investment screening process. Importantly, we also saw that about 43% of those respondents consider that they're more optimistic now than they were a year ago about the outlook for 5G, which we find encouraging. We also found that the vast majority of those respondents see 5G contributing to growth for the industry, and about 60% of respondents expect at least 5% expansion in the industry revenue pool from 5G over the next 5 years. And if we look at what the GSMA is saying, that's the Industry Association for the Mobile Industry, they expect mobile industry revenues to grow by about 10% by 2025 to about $1.15 trillion. What we also see from our survey is the important role of enterprise services in the future of 5G for carriers. And as you can see from this chart, about 36% of our respondents identified enterprise solutions as the most important driver of revenue from 5G for carriers over the next 5 years. And what we also saw from this survey was that about 2/3 of respondents see IoT and low latency use cases being the most important drivers of future growth in the industry, way more so than for just enhanced mobile broadband. Now, to realise all of that potential from 5G, the carriers still need to make a huge amount of investment in infrastructure. The GSMA thinks that the industry will need to invest about $900 billion in capex over the next 5 years. That's about 20% of average sales. And about 80% of that investment is expected to be spent on 5G. Now, carriers may get some help with that investment program from a number of recovery funds that have been set up. Most notably in Europe, we have about an 800 billion euro recovery fund set up by the EU, which could make available billions of dollars to the industry for infrastructure and digital projects. And to a lesser extent, we see the US administration's investment fund also helping to kind of ease the capex burden on the industry. But there's going to be a need to invest a lot of money in standalone 5G networks. Without standalone infrastructure, the true potential of 5G around low latency and massive machine-to-machine communication won't be unlocked. And as we can see from that pie chart today, not many 5G networks around the world are investing in standalone infrastructure. So that's going to be a really critical part of the puzzle going forward to actually realize the potential of 5G. What we're also going to see, I think, is a change in the way this infrastructure is actually built. In our survey that we conducted in March, we found that over half of respondents think that open standards-based solutions, so open RANs in particular, are going to play a really important part in the future infrastructure for carriers. Now, those open standards-based solutions use general off-the-shelf computer hardware that helps to lower barriers of entry to potential new suppliers. It cuts the cost of components. It cuts the cost of software development. So that can potentially kind of make the investment much more attractive and reduce the speed to market for this technology. But it creates risks for companies like Nokia and Ericsson and opens the doors to new players like Samsung, Mavenir, and Parallel Wireless, to name just a few. Now, we also heard some commentary about space, and space definitely poses risks and opportunities for the traditional carriers. We've put up here the rapid evolution of SpaceX Starlink low Earth orbit constellation now has over 1,600 operational satellites and a thin global coverage. And we're going to see more of these LEO satellite networks come into operation in the next 2 or 3 years. It does potentially create some rivalry for the 5G carriers, but it also could be a great opportunity for 5G backhaul and even edge-based computing if the technology lives up to expectations. But it's not just about LEO constellations. There are potentially some threats. There's a company called AST Space Mobile in the US that's looking to deliver 5G from space over existing handsets, so that could be a more direct rival. And then we're also seeing nano satellite technology come into operation, which is potentially a threat in the IoT market. We're also seeing that climate goals are becoming an important part of the 5G sales pitch for carriers. Here we've highlighted an example from Vodafone that they're saying that basically helping their enterprise clients cut climate emissions is the most substantial way that they can contribute to the kind of global climate targets over the next 10 to 15 years. And we're seeing this more and more from carriers. And so I think as they take 5G to enterprise customers, it's going to be a really important driver. And as we see more pressure from corporates to cut emissions, this could unlock doors to growth for the carriers going forward. Ultimately, 5G is an incredibly complex opportunity set for the carriers, particularly in the enterprise space. This is a very busy chart, but basically it kind of sums up the complex capabilities that carriers need to refine and develop to make the most out of the opportunity, and the fact they're going to have to redefine the way they collaborate and partner with other parts of the ecosystem. Now, if they can do that successfully, they could unlock substantial profit growth, but it's going to take a lot of change in how they run their businesses. So I hope you found that an interesting introduction to the outlook on the sector. If you're a terminal client, you can dig into some of that research by following the links on this page, or you can go BI Go and click on the telecom sector and you'll find it all there. If you're not a client, please get in touch and we will help you navigate the research. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoy the rest of the event.